Now we are all here, said Gandalf, looking at the row of 13 hoods, the best detachable party hoods, and his own hat hanging on the pegs. Quite a merry gathering. I hope there is something left for the latecomers to eat and drink. What's that? Tea? No, thank you. A little red wine, I think, for me. And for me, said Thorin. And raspberry jam, and apple tart, said Bifur. And mince pies and cheese, said Boffer. And pot pie and salad, said Bomber. And more cakes, and ale, and coffee, if you don't mind, called the other dwarfs through the door. Put on a few eggs, if there's a good fellow, Gandalf called after him, as the hobbit stumped off to the pantries, and just bring out the cold chicken and pickles. Seems to know as much about the inside of my larder as I do myself, thought Mr. Baggins, who was feeling positively flummoxed, and was beginning to wonder whether the most wretched adventure had not come right into his house. By the time he had got all the bottles and dishes and knives and forks and glasses and plates and spoons and things up piled on big trays, he was getting very hot and red in the face and annoyed. Confiscating the bother of these dwarfs, he said aloud. Why don't they come and lend a hand? Lo and behold, there stood Balin and Dwalin at the door of the kitchen, and Philly and Killy behind them, and before he could say knife, they whisked the trays and a couple of small tables into the parlour and set out everything afresh. Gandalf sat at the head of the party, with the 13 dwarfs all round, and Bilbo sat on a stool at the fireside, nibbling on a biscuit. His appetite was quite taken away, and trying to look as if this was all perfectly ordinary, and not in the least an adventure. The dwarfs ate and ate and ate and talked, and time got on. At last they pushed their chairs back, and Bilbo made a move to collect their plates and glasses. I suppose you will all stay for supper, he said in his politest, unpressing tones. Of course, said Thorin. And after? We shan't get through the business till late, and we must have some music first. Now, to clear up. Thereupon the 12 dwarfs, not Thorin, he was too important, and stayed talking to Gandalf, jumped to their feet, and made tall piles of all things. Off they went, not waiting for trays, balancing columns of plates, each with a bottle on the top, with one hand, while the hobbit ran after them, almost squeaking with fright. Please be careful, and please don't trouble, I can manage. But the dwarfs only started to sing. Tip the glasses and crack the plates, blunt the knives and bend the forks, that's what Bilbo Baggins hates. Smash the bottles and burn the corks, cut the cloth and tread on the fat, pour the milk on the pantry floor, leave the buns on the bedroom mat, splash the wine on every floor, dump the crocks in the boiling bowl, pound them up in a thumping pole, and when you're finished if they're near a hole, send them down the hall to roll. That's what Bilbo Baggins hates, so carefully with the plates. And of course they did none of these dreadful things, and everything was cleaned and put away as quick as lightning, while the hobbit was turning round and round in the middle of the kitchen, trying to see what they were doing. Then they went back and found Thorin, with his feet on the fender, smoking a pipe. It was blowing most enormous smoke rings, and wherever he told one to go, it went, up the chimney, or behind the clock on the mantelpiece, or under the table, or round and round the ceiling. But wherever it went, it was not quick enough to escape Gandalf. He sent a smaller smoke ring from his short clay pipe straight through each one of Thorin's. Then Gandalf's smoke ring would go green and come back to hover over the wizard's head. He had a cloud of them already, and in the dim light it had made him look strange and sorcerous. Bilbo stood still and watched. He loved smoke rings, and then he blushed to think how proud he had been yesterday morning of the smoke rings he had sent up the wind over the hill. Now for some music, said Thorin. Bring out the instruments. Killy and Philly rushed for the bags and brought back little fiddles. Doi, Noi, and Oi brought out flutes from somewhere inside their coats. Bomber produced a drum from the hall. Bifur and Boffer went went out too, and came back with clarinets that they had left among the walking sticks. The Wailing and Balin said, "Excuse me, I left mine in the porch. Just bring mine in with you as well," said Thorin. They came back with vials as big as themselves, and with Thorin's harp wrapped in a green cloth. It was a beautiful golden harp, and when Thorin struck it, the music began all at once, so sudden and sweet that Bilbo forgot everything else and was swept away into dark lands under strange moons, far over the water and very far from his hobbit hole under the hill. The dark filled all the room, and the fire died down, and the shadows were lost, and still they played on, and suddenly first one and then another began to sing as they played, deep-throated singing of the dwarfs in the deep places of their ancient homes, and this is like a fragment of their song, if it can be like their song without their music. Far over misty mountains cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day, to seek the pale enchanted gold. The dwarfs of yore made mighty spells, while hammers fell like ringing bells, in places deep where dark things sleep, in hollow halls beneath the fells. For ancient kings and elfish lords, there many a gleaming golden halls they shaped and wrought, and light they caught, to hide in gems, in hilt of swords. On silver necklaces they strung the flowering stars, on crowns they hung the dragon fire, in twisted wire they meshed the light of moon and sun. Far over misty mountain cold, to dungeons deep and caverns old, we must away ere break of day, our long forgotten gold, to claim our long forgotten gold. Goblets they carved there for themselves, and harps of gold where no man delves. There lay thereon, and many a song was sung unheard by men or elves. The pines were roaring on the height, the winds were mourning in the night. The fire was red, it flaming spread, the trees like torches blessed with light. The bells were ringing in the dale, and men looked up with faces pale. Then dragons' ire, more fierce than fire, laid low their towers and houses frail. The mountain smote beneath the moon, the dwarfs they heard the tramp of doom. They fled their hall to die in fall, beneath his feet, beneath the moon. Far over misty mountains grim, to dungeons deep and caverns dim, we must away ere break of day. to win our harps and gold from him. As they sang, the Hobbit felt the love of beautiful things made by hands, and by cunning and by magic moving through him, a fierce and jealous love, the desire of the hearts of dwarfs. Then something Tookish woke up inside him, and he wished to go and see the great mountains, and hear the pine trees and the waterfalls, and explore the caves, and wear a sword instead of a walking stick. He looked out of the window. The stars were out. In a dark sky above the trees, he thought of the jewels of the dwarfs shining in the deep, dark caverns. Suddenly, in the woods beyond the water, a flame leapt up, probably somebody lighting a wood fire, and he thought of plundering dragons settling on his quiet hill and kindling it all to flames. He shuddered, and very quickly he was plain Mr. Baggins of Bag End, Underhill, yet again. He got up trembling. He had less than half a mind to fetch the lamp, and more than half a mind to pretend to, and go and hide between the beer barrels in the cellar, and not come out again until after the dwarfs had gone away. Suddenly he found that the music and the singing had stopped, and they were all looking at him with eyes shining in the dark. "Where are you going?" said Thorin, in a tone that seemed to show that he had guessed both halves of the Hobbit's mind. "But what about a little light?" said Bilbo apologetically. "We like the dark," said all the dwarfs. "Dark for dark business. There are many hours before dawn." Of course," said Bilbo, who sat down in a hurry. He missed the stool and sat in the fender, knocking over the poker and the shovel with a crash. "Hush," said Gandalf. "Let Thorin speak." And this is how Thorin began. "Gandalf, dwarfs, and Mr. Baggins, we are met together in the hall of our friend and fellow conspirator, this most excellent and audacious Hobbit. May the hair on his toes never fall out. All praise to his wine and ale." He paused for breath and for polite remark of the Hobbit, but the compliments were quite lost on poor Bilbo Baggins, who was wagging his mouth in protest at being called audacious, and worst of all, fellow conspirator. Though no noise came out, he was so flummoxed that so Thorin went on. "We are met to discuss our plans, our ways, means, policy, and devices. We shall soon, before the break of day, start on our long journey, a journey from which some of us, or perhaps all of us, except our friend and counsellor, the ingenious wizard Gandalf, may never return. It is a solemn moment. Our object is to take it. The well known to us all to be estimable Mr. Baggins, and perhaps to one or two of the younger dwarfs. I should be right in naming Killian Philly, for instance. The exact situation at the moment may require a little brief explanation. This was Thorin's style. He was an important dwarf. If he'd been allowed, he would probably have gone on like this until he was out of breath, without telling anyone or anyone there anything that was not already known. But he was rudely interrupted. Poor Bilbo couldn't bear it any longer. I may never return. He began to feel a shriek coming up inside him, and very soon it burst out like the whistle of an engine coming out of a tunnel. All the dwarfs sprang up, knocking over the table. Gandalf struck a blue light on the end of his magic staff, and in its firework glare the poor little hobbit could be seen kneeling on the hearth rug, shaking like a jelly that was melting. Then he fell flat on the floor and kept on calling, struck the lightning, over and over, and that was all they could get out of him for a long time. So they took him and laid him out of the way on the drawing-room sofa, with a drink at his elbow, and they went back to their dark business. "Excitable little fellow," said Gandalf, as they sat down. "Gets funny, queer fits, but he is one of the best, as fierce as dragons in a pinch." If you have ever seen a dragon in a pinch, you will realise that this was only poetical exaggeration applied to any hobbit, even to old Took's great-grand-uncle Bullroarer, who was so huge for a hobbit that he could ride a horse. He charged the ranks of the goblins of Mount Graham in the Battle of the Green Fields, and knocked their kin Golfimble's heads clean off with a wooden club. It sailed hundreds of yards through the air and went down a rabbit hole, and in the way the battle was won, and the game of golf invented in the same moment. In the meanwhile, however, the Bullroarer's gentler descendant was reviving in the drawing room. After a while, and a drink, he crept nervously to the door of the parlour. This is what he heard. Gloin speaking. Or some more or less like that. Will he do you think? It is all very well for Gandalf to talk about the hobbit being fierce, but one shriek like that, in a moment of excitement, would be enough to wake the dragon and all his relatives, and kill the lot of us. I think it sounded more like fight than excitement. In fact, if it had not been for the sign on the door, I should have been sure we had come to Bourne House. As soon as I clapped eyes on the little fellow bobbing and puffing on the mat, I had my doubts. He looked more like a grocer than a burglar. Then Mr. Baggins turned the handle and went in. The two decided one. He suddenly felt he would go without bed and breakfast to be thought fierce. As for the little fellow bobbing on the mat, it almost made him really fierce. Many a time afterwards, the Baggins part regretted what he did now, and he said to himself, Bilbo, you were a fool. You walked right in and put your foot in it. Pardon me, he said, if I overheard words that you were saying. I don't pretend to understand what you were talking about, or your reference to burglars, but I think I am right in believing, this is what he called being on his dignity, that you think I am no good. I will show you. I have no signs on my door. It was painted a week ago, and I am quite sure you have come to Bourne House. As soon as I saw your funny faces on the doorstep, I had my doubts, but treat it as the right one. Tell me what you want done, and I will try. If I have to walk from here to the east of East and fight the wild wereworms in the last desert. I had a great-grand-uncle once, Bullroarer Took, and... Yes, but that was long ago, said Gloin. I was talking about you, and I assure you there is a mark on the door, the usual one in the trade, or used to be. Burglar wants a good job, plenty of excitement and reasonable reward. That's how it is usually read. You can say expert treasure hunter instead of burglar if you like. Some of them do. It's all the same to us. Gandalf told us there was a man of the sort in these parts looking for a job at once, and that he had arranged for a meeting here this Wednesday tea time. Of course there is a mark, said Gandalf. I put it there myself, for very good reasons. You asked me to find the 14th man of your expedition, and I chose Mr. Baggins. Just let anyone say I chose the wrong man, or the wrong house, and you can stop at 13, and have all the bad luck you like. Or go back to digging coal. He scowled angrily at Gloin, and the dwarf huddled back in his chair, and when Bilbo tried to open his mouth to ask a question, he turned and frowned at him, and stuck out his bushy eyebrows, till Bilbo shut his mouth tight with a snap. That's right, said Gandalf. Let's have no more argument. I have chosen Mr. Baggins, and that ought to be enough for all of you. If I say he is a burglar he is, or will be when the time comes. There's a lot more in him than you guess, and a deal more than he has any idea himself. You may, possibly, all live to thank me yet. Now, Bilbo, my boy, fetch the lamp, and let's have a little light on this. On the table, in the light of a big lamp, with a red shade, the spread of a piece of parchment, rather like a map. This was made by Flor, your grandfather, Thorin, he said to answer the dwarf's excited questions. It is a plan of mountain. I don't see that this will help us much, said Thorin disappointedly. after a glance. "I remember the mountain well enough, and the lands about it, and I know where Mirkwood is, and the withered heath where the dread dragon is bred." There is a dragon that Marton read on the mountain," said Balin, "but it will be easy enough to find him without that, if ever we arrive there." "There is one point you haven't noticed," said the wizard, "and that is the secret entrance. You see that rune on the west side, the hand pointing it from the other rooms? That marks a hidden passage to the lower halls. Look at the map at the beginning of this book, and you will see the runes in red." These are runes. There we go. "It may have been a secret one," said Thorin, "but how do we know that it is secret any longer? Old Smaug has lived there long enough now to find out anything there is to know about those caves." "He may, but he can't have used it for years and years." "Why?" "Because it is too small.